All right, three, two, one. Happy Whiskey Wednesday, everybody. This is the Whiskey Lifestyles Women in Whiskey series. I am Rashawn Hall, aka Bar Time Stories. And this week we have a very special guest, our first person that we've interviewed twice, once as a Whiskey Lifestyle Q&A, and now here on this great series. So welcome in Eboni Major, the one and
Thank
only.
you. Thank you.
Well, thank you for doing this. Like I said, you're the first person that we have interviewed for both this series and for the website. So obviously, we can jump around a little bit. We don't have to kind of give the full background. I highly recommend people go and read Ebony's Q&A back when she had a previous job that we'll touch on a little bit. But we're going to really talk about what's forward and what's future, and not all about past. But I think most people do know that Ebony was master blender at Bulleit, and had done some amazing things there, and then transitioned out of there. And you guys can read all about that. You can Google her, read on the New York Times article, and you can do all that stuff, and great podcasts like the Black and Brown podcast that she was on. So they will cover all of that. We're just going to talk about that was a thing. This is how you might know her. She made an amazing liquid called Blender Select, batch number 1, that everyone still covets, and you can get on the secondary market possibly. We really want to talk. I really wanted to talk to you. Given all of that, I wanted to give you a platform. I know you did a lot of talking about that, but I wanted to give you a platform to kind of talk about where you're going now and all the, as I follow you on social, I know there's a lot of amazing things you're doing, and we'd just love to talk to you about being a woman in this space, taking up space, which I think is so important. It's something that you've done. And I'm going to stop talking and just tell me, just have you tell us a little bit about what's going on in your world right now.
Yeah, so I'm currently doing everything I wanted to do in the world of consulting. So I'm consulting for a few different distilleries. I've always loved craft. I've always loved smaller. When I was at Bulleit, I always felt like craft was our competition. So now I am in a position where I can work with multiple distilleries, which is something that I really, really love, because when I was publicly speaking to Bulleit, I was also working on some other brands. So I work at a distillery at my hometown called Dread River Distilling Company in Birmingham, Alabama. And it's a beautiful facility, event space. And I'm just working with them to kind of bring a more whiskey and bourbon focus to Birmingham, Alabama. They have one of the first distilleries in Alabama. There's not another one this big. So really just working on that. But the great thing is that they're allowing me to do this all while building my own brand. And that's really the most important thing. I am open to consulting and blending for a lot of people, but I am also working on major whiskey, which is going to take a long time, but I'm excited about that. So that's what I'm doing. In the long short, I'm consulting and working on my own brand. So yeah.
Okay, great. So the one thing, as I was doing a little bit of prep for this, that I found interesting, and it is the one, again, one question about the past, and again, going to your value and kind of what you're going through. When we talked, it was probably 2019, 2020. It was during the summer. No, probably it was 2020. It was during the summer of unrest. We talked a good deal, and you said a lot, and you were really proud of the juice you had made, and it was out in the world. However, I just read that juxtaposed to the Times piece and all the other stuff you were going through. How did you maintain that composure during that time? Like, that you were still front facing, face of this company, face of this great expression, but having those internal struggles. Talk a little bit about that balance and that experience.
Yeah, I think I have to say I'm still moving through that. I'm still figuring that out. It was a lot of trauma. I would say, from having to, like you said, manage. I'm going to go out here and talk to the people that I love, because I love consumers. I'm going to talk about what I love. I'm going to talk about what I do, but having to balance how you felt. And that was just something that I experienced in my role. I was never quiet about my worth. I was never quiet about my value. Before we would go out to speaking things, I was very vocal. But, every time that I brought up any, reservations about going out unpaid, it was like, well, you could always say no. I'm not going to say no. I'm not going to stop doing what I love. And I really almost got to that point prior to June. I reached out to Clay for the article. I really didn't reach out for the article. I literally reached out for career advice because I did not know what to do. I, started this negotiation in October 2020. And for 2 years, you guys have no idea that I was going through this. So I don't know how I've done it. I'm amazed at myself that I'm able to, because I just feel like there's something positive in everything. And I love whiskey to the point where I could not talk about it. I could not go and speak, because the people that were not treating me fairly were the people internally, but it was externally, the bartenders, the consumers, everybody like you that were so excited to talk to me, and how I always felt this responsibility to those people. But also I would tell Diageo at the same time, you have a responsibility because I'm your poster girl, but these things aren't being carried throughout the business. So it was very difficult to manage. It took me years to figure it out. It took me years to want to come out and actually tell my story and talk about those things. But somehow I did it.
Okay. Well, and more importantly, you're now moving forward. So tell us a little bit more about the consultancy and what does a consultant do? Explain for those who may not understand what that experience is like.
So as a blender, a lot of our role is misunderstood. As a blender, you're involved in planning, innovation, sourcing, manufacturing. So my consulting really expands from anything as simple as you needing some sensory training, you need quality systems set up in your lab, or we can go as far as creating an innovation pipeline, creating what you need to make today for 4 or 5 years later. The local distillery here, they have they have a distillery, they need visibility, so marketing. I'm also willing to go out and do those things for smaller brands. But for me, it's the education that I love, being able to learn and distill on smaller scales and try different things for several different customers is what I'm really enjoying. I don't push myself beyond boundaries. I have like 3 clients at the moment because I want to give them the most of my attention, but consulting allows me to reach several different brands with different consumers. And that's really what I like, is just reaching more whiskey drinkers.
And obviously there has to be a warm spot in your heart for doing it in your home state, hometown. Tell us a little bit more about that distillery and what it means to be bringing, making juice in, from where you're from.
Yeah, I'm trying not to cry right now. When I was working for Kettle Chips before I started for Bulleit, and I was interning in Oregon, my grandmother got really sick, and her being sick was the reason I applied for the role at Bulleit, because I wanted to get closer to home. She passed away New Year's Eve 2020, and it's been difficult, but I can see where she lives from where I'm at right now. So this distillery has a very, very special place in my heart. It's downtown Birmingham. I'm on 7th Avenue South, and my grandmother's address is 2322 9th Avenue South. So I am literally 2 blocks away from where she lived for 31 years in a beautiful building, beautiful facility. And it means so much to me to do this first, coming from such a large company, and not to say the world is my oyster, but this means a lot more for me to be able to do something here, do it at home, to be able to reach the community and really give back to my community that built me before going off to do something else. So I love everything about this place. I wish I could walk you around, but it's a huge, beautiful facility. And I just really want people to get more involved with whiskey in Alabama in general.
Okay. And how do you go? I mean, obviously this is a special project, but you have 3 clients right now. How do you determine, what is a project? What inspires you to say yes? I mean, I'm just trying to help those people out there who might hit you up, so they know what's the starter kit. What's the we don't have to talk about budget. We know that's important.
No.
What else beyond that?
I cannot tell you the number of inquiries, consulting meetings, flights, whatever I've taken in a project does not really hit for me. I think for me to take on a project, I have to really be bought into the long-term vision because anything that I do, I'm fully passionate in. It was hard for me to walk away from Bulleit. I was super invested in that role, invested in the plans moving forward. So, I say anybody reach out to me, but I'm going to immediately kind of drill you. I want to know, what's your marketing plan? Who's your consumer? Please don't come for me if you're looking for diversity.
Okay. Facts.
Yeah. Please don't reach out if you're looking for that. I decided to take more of a step back on the marketing front. I love talking to consumers and all that, but I'm not looking to go out and just fully sell a brand. But I like to have a conversation. If they have a distillery, I like to go visit, see what's there. And really, like I said earlier, just really understand what the end goal and see if I'm the right person to get you there. Because sometimes I might not be the right person, but I can get you in contact with the right people. And what I'm really learning as I go along, and I am looking for consulting roles, these distilleries, like one distillery in Nashville is looking for me to help hire. So I am blessed to be in an opportunity to be able to review resumes and look and help place some talent in some of these distilleries where people may have not been able to get an entry into the industry.
It's amazing. And for all that, you talked about your love of whiskey and you still love it. Now being free, being able to taste and do and try, experiment. What's piquing your interest right now? What do you don't talk about brands, just trends or different finishes or anything. What is some of the things that you're experiencing lately?
Whiskey as a category, and a lot of people might be upset with me for saying this. The past 2 years might have been a little disappointing only because there's so many brands popping up. And there's new brands all the time, but is there new juice? Is there new liquid? Or are we just sipping the same thing in a different bottle? I've had one potential consulting client tell me that it's just like perfume, it's different than in a bottle. Needless to say, I did not sign on to them because I don't believe that about whiskey.
Right.
That is not, it's not perfume and you just put it in different bottles. So I'm honestly, this has allowed me to focus more on distillation to see where are some grains we can play with, what are some differences we can do. I have a small scale here where you can do different things, but I need to take a trip to Louisville and get some real whiskeys because the Alabama selection is very limited. Or I need to get on somebody's list to get whiskey sent to me because I want to try everything. I miss smelling and tasting whiskey all day. And I only started my project at the beginning of this month. So up until I would say, I know I'm going off track. You know how I do.
No, you're good. I love it.
Up until maybe April, I was just working solely on my brand. Investment offers that did or didn't happen. We were just working on that. And then some of these consulting opportunities came up. And I was just like, absolutely, I would love to do this, love to learn. So to answer your question, I'm looking forward to the American Craft Beers Association conference later in July so I can try some craft whiskeys. But I really want to see what else is out there. What have you seen that has excited you since we last talked?
Oh wow! There's been a lot of finishes, a lot of cast finishes that have been out of the ordinary. I mean, you obviously have your sherry cast, et cetera, et cetera. But I have seen, and some work and some don't. I have seen some tequila finishes that have been interesting. It's exactly. It's again interesting. Like
I might send you a sample.
I'm like, oh, okay. I've had moments like, oh no, and then I've had some. Oh wow, that's the spiciness it gives it, especially for it's a rye. That is really that I find really unique, and I probably just said that because I just got a sample recently, which was the first thing that popped into my mind.
It's crazy how that happens.
Yeah, no, it's you mentioned majoring whiskey. I would love to know. That is your project. That is the what can you tell us about the brand and where you look to take this brand?
So I will say this. I have been talking about this brand since April. I didn't. So I started the brand in October of 2021. And I intentionally, to create the brand that I envision and I want to create, it's going to take time. I just kicked off with my brand agency this month, and branding, tack, and bottle design takes about 6 to 9 months to complete, and then production. So right now, I don't want to prematurely say anything. All I'm saying is that I'm releasing a whiskey for everybody right now. I am fully and solely invested in the brand and how that comes to life, and ensuring that it's more than, I can't give too much away, that is more than just my last name, that the word major means more about the greater community and everybody getting involved, and whiskey showing up in every culture in every way. So I get excited when I talk about that. Sorry.
No, I love it. I was going to ask you, similarly about ownership. Like, yes, taking that ownership and that agency. How does that feel? There are not a lot of women in that kind of founder position. There are some here and there. There definitely are. Though they exist. But what does that what does that feel like for you?
It feels like the only option. It feels like I can go back and be a distiller. I can go back and be a blender. I can do anything in a distillery. I don't always have the passion, the drive, and the guts to build my own brand. I think in the past few years, I saw so much, and I saw how corporate America treats you and how little they value no matter what you bring. And for me, I am blessed to be on the other side, but also I plan to be honest and advocate. Raising money isn't easy for women of color. Getting loans, all of those things. I am blessed to have years of whiskey and food and business knowledge to back me. But, I also want this to be a stepping stone for more people in the industry. So for me as a founder, I'm hoping, I don't want to speak too soon because it's important that I get it right. And when I say I get it right, I mean, get it right for other people. Get it right so that I leave something better behind, and not necessarily for family, but I just think whiskey as a category really needs a brand that's really rooted in diversity and not committed to diversity.
Okay. And that brings me to the question that the reason the series is named that. We started this series a couple months back, and it was really during Women's History Month, and we got a pitch, and of course it sounded like, oh, it's a thing, let's do it. But then it really, as I started to talk to people have such strong reaction to the term women in whiskey, and that's why I was like, oh, we should keep doing this, because it is interesting to talk to women who are in this space. And not for the DNI reasons, but what is that term as someone who has gone through working at corporate and now doing your own thing? What does that term mean to you when you hear that?
I really don't feel either way towards it. I think if I had a feeling, it would be more negative because I feel I am more than a woman in whiskey, and for me, the identity of being a Black woman in whiskey is so much more than being a woman. I identify as a Black woman first because you can't ignore the intersectionality. Like, it's just so much dealing with being African American, being a woman, and in my case, being a direct woman that's a scientist. It's a game. It's definitely a balancing act. But what I do love is that women are now on the forefront. And now that we've used our opportunities for visibility, I think you're now seeing us stand up for ourselves in different ways, whether it's women that are no longer working at companies that no longer serving them. That wasn't good enough for me. I knew, we're not talking too much about the case, but I knew, I take this money, I do this, I do whatever, it can happen to somebody else. And if I sign this paper saying I won't talk about it. And I think it's important in the women that I surround myself with, specifically like Marianne Barnes, that we support each other in these things, and it holds the industry accountable. I really want to see more women in whiskey. And I think as women, we don't like to be called out as a woman in whiskey, but we know what it does for the younger women or the younger girls and what they can look up to. The amount of people that have said, oh, I'm going to food science because I read about this, or I want to get in whiskey, or just random LinkedIn messages. It's very inspiring because a lot of us didn't get into it because we were a woman. We just, wanted to do something different. And now we have these groups that are amplifying us, and it's amazing. It's good. It's a bit, like I said earlier, it's a balancing act with the men, but it's also amazing to see everybody be recognized for what they bring to the table.
And given that, you talked about how difficult that these 2 years have been, and all the experience you're going through. How do you find that balance? What do you do that is, what takes you, what feeds you in other ways?
Honestly, people like you. People on, and I'm trying to be emotional, people on Instagram that believe in me. People that want to see me win. It's easy for me to want to give up and just say, hey, I have this food science degree. I'm going to just go get a job and do whatever. But it's definitely been over the past 2 years, the people that have supported me that have made me keep going. Because I wanted to quit a long time ago. I wanted to quit a long time ago. And, but I also, and just to be a little bit honest, I was seeing reoccurring things, no matter if it was a corporation or a consulting company, the diversity. And it's not just diversity. I don't want to make it seem like I need to have a bunch of diverse people. It's great. It makes companies better, but it's about being included, inclusion, and being in places where you're not an afterthought, or you're not, just a quota. So yeah, like I don't know, Rashawn, I'm really passionate about what I'm doing right now. So that's really what has kept me, into this, and seeing the places that whiskey has not gone. I still feel like it has not really reached its top level, So I'm just excited to still be excited about the category, honestly, because sometimes when you experience that thing, it can push you away from what it is that you love. And it probably pushed me away from whiskey for a while. I had to let it go because it had became my lifestyle. So it became me more than my lifestyle. Whiskey kind of becomes you. And I was, not willing to walk away from that.
Awesome. Okay. So we're not going to get you emotional. We're going to end on a fun question. And I've
asked you if you have more questions, you can.
Yeah. No. I was going to say, no, we like to keep this, at a tight, that people have their time. It's a good, if people want to learn more about you, they got to follow you and support the brand. What is, if you're listening, what are you listening to right now? What's the, you grab your phone, you press play on Spotify.
Yeah.
What's coming up? It's
definitely Sabrina Claudio's latest album, Based on a Feeling, or Jack Harlow. Jack Harlow, his latest album was really, really nice, but it's been a lot of Based on a Feeling. When I get into work moods, I really, like rap, but Jack Harlow, his latest album was a lot about Kentucky and Louisville, and I felt him in that album, which is so weird because he talks, I think the name of the album is Come Home, The Kids Miss You, and just the way he talks about Louisville and whiskey and bourbon or whatever in the songs, it really put me in a good place over the past month or so, I would say. So yeah, that's the two in heavy rotation.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Ebony, as always, it's a pleasure talking to you. I'm so glad we got to do this. And you guys make sure you follow Ebony if you want to just give them where they can follow you on social.
Yeah, so you can find me at Major in Whiskey on Instagram. That's usually where I am, or Ebony_Major on Twitter. But Instagram is where I spend most of my time.
Yes, and if you follow her, you get to see Penny, who is the star of the show on the Instagram stories. So love Penny. And you could, I don't know if you, I have my dog is in the background.
Yes, I saw you're on the couch. Yes.
Yep, there you go. He's just chilling on the couch. That's what he does. But yes, thank you so much, Ebony. I really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure as always.
Thank you so much. It was great. And I can't wait to come on again. Maybe next time we'll have like a bottle mock-up or something for you, a little bit more brand strategy. But I will say I am going to take my time doing this, guys, because I want to do it right. If you come back in a year and you're waiting, it'll be there. But I'm definitely going to do this.
Okay. we're gonna wait as long as it takes. We're here. Thank you so much. All right.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Rashawn.